Right, Trev, before we actually start fishing, I'm just going to take you through the baits that we're going to be using today and also how to feed the bait whilst you're using a pole.
Okay.
So we're going to be using pellets, which are very, very popular and successful in a lake such as this, and it's going to mean that we're hopefully going to target some slightly bigger fish, slightly bigger carp and maybe tench. So I've actually got two different sizes of pellets. I've got some 6mm pellets here that I'm going to be using as my main feed, and I've also got some micro pellets as well that are actually 2mm in diameter. Now I've prepared these by adding some water to make them damp, and that's important in two ways. It ensures that they all sink consistently, because if you use them straight from the pack, some will float with them being so small and light, but it also means that we can make a small ball with them, which is a very nice way to feed the peg, given certain conditions.
Okay.
So we've got two options. We're going to be feeding micro pellets loose in a small ball, and we're also going to be feeding some larger 6mm pellets. So I guess if we find that the fish are responding well and we're catching some good sized fish, we're going to end up using the larger pellets to attract more bigger fish and hold them in the peg.
Okay, so that's our feed bait. I've been looking at the top sections that you've got, and I can see you've got some fancy looking cups or something on the top.
Yeah, well that's right. I mean, specifically for pole fishing, we use pole cups. And I've actually got two different cups that I'm going to show you today. This is the main cup that is permanently fixed on a cupping kit. Now you'll see that lots of poles are sold with a dedicated cupping kit. The cupping kit needs to be strong and stiff to ensure that you can get the desired amount of bait out. It might be a ball of ground bait, it might be full of hemp and corn, which is quite heavy, to ensure that the pole kit's strong enough and stiff enough to do that without it bouncing all over the place. And basically we're going to use this main cup for our initial feed introduction, and also when we want to top up with a good quantity of bait. What's really popular and successful when pole fishing on a lake like this is these small mounted pole cups that actually remain on the pole kit all the time.
Okay.
So that means that we can introduce small amounts of feed very regularly and very, very accurately, because you're going to be placing the feed right on top of your float every time you ship out. So this is where you want to be feeding little and often, which is obviously the best way to start feeding a peg to determine how the fish are reacting.
Yeah, so I mean the accuracy side of it I can see is a big plus for pole fishing straight away. Yeah. So when we've gone out, we've got the depth correct, now we're feeding exactly over that same spot. Exactly,
you're keeping the feed in a very concentrated area, and that's one of the big advantages of using a pole.
Okay.
So Trev, just to conclude that, we're going to start off by feeding a ball of micro pellets, and I'm going to put a small handful of 6mm pellets in. That's all we're going to do to start with, and we're going to take it from there. We'll suck it and see how the fish respond. I also wanted to quickly mention, Trev, about the hook bait, because we're going to use a soft hook bait, a soft pellet.
Okay.
And I've actually got two different sizes. I've got a 4mm and a 6mm. So that gives us some options on the hook baits as well. And you need to use a softer hook bait because you can't hook the hard pellet onto the hook. Unless you use a band, which is an effective way of doing it. We're going to keep it simple, and we're actually going to use a soft pellet. And I just wanted to quickly show you how to hook the soft pellet onto the hook. So we're going to take the 6mm pellet in this case, and we're just going to place the hook through the middle of the pellet and just bring out so the point's protruding. So I've got the bait secure on the hook, so it's not going to fall off when we ship out, and we're disguising the hook to a certain extent, but that hook's available there and ready to strike and hopefully hook the fish very efficiently. Yeah. Now, as with all sorts of fishing, there's different ways of hooking the bait. And it's something that's always worth considering when you're fishing. You know, you could hook the pellet more lightly, like that,
Okay.
or you could completely disguise the hook in the pellet, just depending on how the fish are responding, how long you're having to wait for a bite, and how tricky the fish are being. So there we've near enough got the whole hook hidden inside the pellet.
Inside the bait. So if the fish were very finicky, you may do that.
Yeah.
If the fish are really on it, you can leave the point out more, and obviously gauging it against your success rate
And
of strike rate.
I'll just quickly show you with the smaller 4mm pellet hooked, because again on certain days you'll find that a smaller pellet will outfish the bigger pellet. As with all fishing, it pays to experiment and think about your hook baits and your feeding. It's got to be the most important part of your fishing to maximise the fish that you're going to catch.
Yeah.